Hello guys, Matthew here and welcome back again to the TechTick YouTube channel. Yes, it's finally here and I have it from the day one of its release. The well-anticipated Nvidia's GeForce GTX 1060, the overall more affordable and more mainstream Pascal GPU, and the supposed rival of the AMD's RX 480, coming once again from MSI in their Gaming X version. Speaking of the RX 480, you can click on the info card in the top right corner if you wish to check out my direct comparison with the GTX 1060. The video should be uploaded soon if it already isn't. As you can see, the product box is pretty much nearly identical to the likes of the GTX 1080 and GTX 1070 Gaming X models, which I've also reviewed not so long ago, so be sure to check that out if you didn't. On the front you can see the graphics card itself, while on the back there is an in-depth overview of the model's main features, like the twin Frozer cooling system in its 6th generation, RGB LED lighting, some basic product specifications and requirements. Opening up the box, just like with other upper tier models, you will not get anything else except some user manuals, optical disc with drivers and software and some stickers, which is kinda disappointing to say at least, but that's not important right now anyways. The important thing is this graphics card in front of me. Right from the start you can notice how the card visually and size-wise looks the same as the GTX 1070 and GTX 1080 Gaming X models. Try to guess which one of these two is the GTX 1060. Huh? Which one do you think it is? Try to guess, don't look at the SLI bridge connection. Okay, it was this one. The reason I mentioned the SLI bridge connection is because Nvidia for some reason removed it from this series, which was actually a bit of a surprise move from their side. My guess is that they didn't want the GTX 1060 overlapping with the GTX 1080, having probably the same performance or being even stronger than it in a two-way SLI configuration with an overall lower price. As with all other MSI Gaming X models, the GTX 1060 version of it is also dominated by this red and black plastic outer shroud, which is accompanied by two 90mm Torx 2.0 fans with dual bearing architecture for longer durability and quieter operation, in conjunction with the Zero Frozer feature, which turns the fans completely off when the card is in idle and basically when the GPU temperature is under 60 degrees Celsius, making the card this way dead silent. Moving further across the cooler, you can see the non-RGB red LED lighting hidden beneath these stripes, while the true RGB LED is in charge of the MSI's Dragon logo on the side of the card. Below that cover hides a big aluminum heatsink in combination with few heat pipes, and although design-wise it's a twin Frozer 6 cooler, it seems that MSI went here with less heat pipes compared to the GTX 1070 and 1080 Gaming X models, but that's no wonder as the GTX 1060 has lower TDP. On the other hand, MSI again went with their own custom matte black PCB design, which is actually quite taller compared to the reference design, while they also improved their power design and cooling for it, incorporating their MSI military technology standard. On the side of the card you will also find one 8-pin PCI Express power connector, which is actually a bump up from the reference design, and its 6-pin PCI Express power connector. Backside reveals the card's cool looking backplate, which beside its aesthetic function serves the purpose of improving the card's cooling and rigidity. Going to the front, for video outputs you'll get your usual set of 3 display ports, one HDMI and one DVI-D. So what exactly is a GTX 1060? As the number in its naming would suggest, it's a Pascal-based graphics card which comes in as a more tamed version of the GTX 1080 and GTX 1070, aiming to satisfy the needs of mainstream gamers. Being that, it of course comes in with less CUDA cores, counting in 1280 of them, around 33% less than compared to the GTX 1070. Although it also carries less VRAM than it, the default number for the GTX 1060 is 6GB of GDDR5 video memory on a 192-bit wide memory bus, which is quite a decent increase compared to the last generation, and it will certainly help a lot in terms of gaming at higher resolution or in games that have more complex textures. The reference GPU clock speed of the GTX 1060 Founders Edition version is set at 1506 MHz, the GPU boost clock goes up to 1708 MHz, while the memory sits at 2000 MHz, effectively 8 GHz. Of course, being an aftermarket solution, the MSI's Gaming X version of the GTX 1060 is clocked a bit higher, precisely at 1595 MHz for the GPU base clock and 1810 MHz for the GPU boost clock. clock. Using the MSI's gaming app software, you can see that the card actually came with the MSI's OC mode as its default clock setting, and I left it like that during my testing since it doesn't do any harm and brings in extra performance. Basically, there is no point or need to have it in gaming mode. In practice and while gaming, I saw GPU clock speed rising to 2000 MHz thanks to the GPU Boost 3.0 technology. I went a bit further with manually overclocking it and achieved additional 100 MHz, and that way pushed it just a bit above the 2100 MHz mark and memory just below 2400 MHz, and overall that's quite impressive and much better compared to my former experience of overclocking with the GTX 1080 and GTX 1070. I actually managed to get even more than that, around plus 150 to 160 MHz of additional GPU clock speed, but I couldn't get some of the games and benchmarks stable enough to run at those higher figures, but at least that means that the overclocking potential is there. This time I actually used that overclocking settings throughout my whole range of games and benchmarks, while I also added a couple of new ones like the 2016 Doom, 3D Mark DirectX 12 x SPI benchmark, as well as some other DirectX 12 benchmarks. Looking at the results, you can clearly see that the GTX 1060 is more than capable to deliver performance, which will without any problem cope with high resolution and high graphical game settings. It's basically on par with the GTX 980, just a bit weaker than it, but bottom line, this is as if the GTX 980 performance was packed into a GTX 960 model when it comes to power to performance output ratio. Overclocking it further makes that difference even smaller, and it will also let you achieve that few FPS more in case you want to play in 4K resolution, which seems to be possible based on my 21:9 resolution testing, but you'll probably have to bump down the settings to get more enjoyable and fluid experience. Taking a look at the load temperatures under Thermax stress testing, I recorded a maximum value of 64 degrees Celsius, while in games it was usually around 60 degrees Celsius, making the card pretty much dead silent, since that's the threshold for fans to turn on or off on account of MSI's Zero Frozer feature. Bottom line, most of the time, even under the heaviest load, the fans were running at really low speed, that being below 1000 RPMs, making it still inaudible and one of the quietest model ever. Since the fans don't spin when the card is not under load, the idle temperature is going to be a bit higher than compared to the Founders Edition, but nothing too significant as you can see it here, since the GPU has TDP of just 120 watts. Last but not least, MSI's gaming app, besides changing the GPU clock modes, will also let you control your basic features, just like on their other graphics cards, stuff like picture settings, control of the LED lights, being it either the RGB one or the red ones on the shroud itself, set up an on-screen monitoring system of the PC stats, cool off the GPU in a faster way with the cooler booster option, and bring up the Dragon Eye app, which lets you watch a YouTube or Twitch stream while you are at the same time playing your own game. All in all, as I witnessed, Nvidia did a pretty good job here, and now the only thing left to see is how will it all unravel price-wise. The thing is that, putting aside the price of Founders Edition, which is set at $300, Nvidia pointed out that the third-party vendors will have a starting price of $250, but that's under a big question mark for me right now, since I already have an information that Gaming X will start to sell way above $300 mark, which is quite a lot more, and it will be interesting to see how it stacks up with the RX 480 when it comes to value. Then again, maybe I'm wrong, maybe that's not 100% accurate, especially since I don't have any kind of additional information in regards of other vendors and models, as this was a NDA series launch. That's it guys for this time. Thank you once again for checking out the unboxing and review of the MSI's GeForce GTX 1060 Gaming X 6G graphics card. Feel free to give this video a thumbs up if you like it, leave a comment down below if you have any questions about the product, and of course if you would like to see more content like this you can subscribe to the TechTeak YouTube channel, or you can just check out some of the other videos from before.